Welcome back to my channel. Today I am going to be sharing my labor and delivery story. So let's get started. I'm really gonna try not to make this video so long. Let's start off with a little context. My original due date was set for February 21st. I was looking like the Michelin Man straight up and down. I was super swollen. I could barely walk, barely move, couldn't do anything. I couldn't even sleep. That's how uncomfortable I was. On January 18th, a Saturday, I had my baby shower. January 20th, Monday, I had my first Braxton Hicks contraction. When I got my first Braxton Hicks, I cried. It meant that I was really coming to the end of my pregnancy and that I would have to soon be ready to push. And at that time, that was the scariest thing for me. I honestly believed and thought that being in labor and pushing a baby out would be the most painful, difficult thing I would ever have to do. Little did I know that was nothing compared to recovery. And post-recovery, that's real pain. So, I mean, I know everybody's story is different. If you guys have a different experience, please let me know in the comments below. The 21st, I had my first bloody discharge and cramping. The bloody discharge I'm referring to goes hand in hand with your mucus plug. So when a woman goes into labor, there are two almost sure things that should happen. One, her water breaking, and two, her mucus plug being released. And a mucus plug is exactly as gross as it sounds. It's disgusting. For some people, it comes out once. For me, it kind of came out in pieces. So I was already bleeding from the 21st. But it would happen again and one more time before I was ready to head to the hospital. Fast forward to Sunday, January 26th. Now, you guys don't know, but my husband's name is Mauricio, and his job a lot of the time requires him to travel. Unfortunately, in this case, he had to be gone for 4 days. Now, you can imagine how devastated and anxious I was. I was a hot mess. I was really trying to keep it together, but I was honestly incredibly scared, just worried. My biggest fear was that he would just not make it in time and I would go into labor while he was away at work. And he had to go to Pennsylvania, which is only 2 hours away, but it's still 2 hours away. So he goes away on Sunday the 26th, and that Sunday night, luckily enough, my mom was in town because she was here visiting me for my baby shower. She doesn't live here in New York City, and she was able to spend the night with me, but then she had to go home on that Monday. It was like one important person leaving me after another. Then on Monday the 27th, luckily I had my dad who was available to stay with me that night. On Tuesday, I began feeling real contractions, but I didn't know they were contractions. So I really thought I would feel like something gut-wrenching. I didn't know that it would feel just like period cramps. The cramping continued consistently throughout the day. I would say if it was a scale from 1 to 10, it was like a 6. I text one friend because she was a mom of 3, so she had a lot of experience, and I told her what I was experiencing, and she said, "Marisol, those are contractions. You need to start keeping track of them." And I'm like, "What? No, you must be mistaken. Like, that's wrong. This is not what I'm feeling. I'm feeling this. I'm feeling this." She's like, "Marisol, those are contractions." And I'm like, there's no way these could be contractions. I cannot be going into labor. My husband is nowhere near me. So I started to freak out and try to calm myself down at the same time because I didn't want to get so upset that I went into labor. I had one friend who even called to pray for me, which helped me calm down so much, and I swear that prayer is actually what slowed down my labor enough for me to make it to the hospital. I'm sorry guys, 1 second. Babies cry. My husband took him. He's so beautiful. So where were we? Right. So it was Tuesday the 28th. My dad went to work. My friend called me around, I want to say 3-4 o'clock. She prayed for me. After that, I was able to take a nap. The contracting started to subside. Right now we're into Wednesday the 29th. I wake up around 1:15 a.m. and I have another bloody discharge when I went to use the restroom. I downloaded an app to track the contractions. I'm just tracking them. And the whole time my dad is sleeping in the living room on my couch. So at 3:21, my mucus plug comes out completely because at this point, it's huge. Like, without a doubt, I know it was out. So I just calmly keep it together. I jump in the shower, wash my hair, I get ready, I get dressed, and I remember thinking, okay, should I text Mauricio at this time? I don't want to wake him and I don't want to worry him yet. So I go to my kitchen and I sit at my kitchen table in the dark. I have like a glass of water with me and a banana, and I'm eating my banana and I'm there just contemplating, okay, Marisol, can you withstand the pain that you're experiencing now? And the whole time my dad is in the living room, he begins to wake up and he's like, what are you doing? What's going on? You're like completely dressed. And I'm like, Dad, my contractions are consistent. They've been consistent for an hour. They've been close together. They've been lasting this long, and they're this painful. He's like, are you sure you want to go to the hospital? I was feeling like I was already dilated. He's like, maybe what you're feeling is just normal. You should wait. It's still very early. So I thought about it and I said, no, I want to go to the hospital because if the pain gets any worse than it is now, I'm afraid I won't be able to get down the stairs and make it to the car. It was really becoming difficult and painful to walk. So I said, I feel like I'm dilated. I think we should go to the hospital. I know to some of you guys might be thinking, girl, you're crazy. It's still early. It's only January 28th. Your due date is February 21st. But I had an instinct that I was ready to go. So he got my bags. My hospital bags were already packed. We drive to the hospital. He leaves me at the front and he has to go get parking. So I had to go inside by myself. So I go inside by myself. I can barely walk. I could barely carry the weight. And somebody says, don't worry, we're gonna bring you a wheelchair immediately. And I had to say, the hospital staff where I gave birth, from the time I got there to the time I got discharged, they were amazing. They made the experience so warm and beautiful and less terrifying. Before they actually admit you and take you to the room where you're gonna be giving actual birth in, they put you in a small waiting room and you have to wait for the doctor to come and check you. So that's exactly what they did. It takes about 15 or 20 minutes before somebody can actually attend to you. All the while I'm experiencing more and more intense contractions. The pain is getting serious. The pain is getting to probably, at this point, I'm starting to get to a 7, borderline 8. So I'm there and I'm just trying to take it. I'm clenching the bed that I'm on. I'm breathing hard and I'm really just trying to hold on to the pain as long as I can, because originally I had not made up my mind, but I really wanted to do this without an epidural. I wasn't against an epidural because I already told myself if I needed to get it, I was gonna get it and I wasn't gonna feel guilty about it, but I really was gonna try to do it without an epidural. And the reason for that is because of all the after effects that I heard it comes with, like the back pain and the possibility of being paralyzed while they're giving you the shot. In my head I was like, I'm gonna try to do this, I'm gonna try to be strong, but I'm starting to feel a lot of pain and I'm like, oh my god, I have to be dilated some type of amount. I have to mention that at this point in the car, I did text Mauricio. I told him, I don't want you to worry, but I am on my way to the hospital just because I've been feeling some contractions. And he's like, are you sure? Okay. And then he like went back to sleep. Finally, the midwife comes in. Now, when she checked me, that joint hurt. And what I was expecting was that it was gonna feel like any other checkup. I did not expect the pain that came with her having to check if I was dilated. So she checks me and she says that I'm 0 centimeters dilated. 0. I was tight. I was so upset. I said, how could it be possible that I could not be dilated, not even 1 centimeter, if I'm in so much pain? And basically what they got it down to was that it was possible that I was dehydrated. So what they told me is that we're gonna keep you for an hour just to watch you, and we're gonna ask you to drink these 2 pitchers of water. And in an hour, if your contractions go down, then it was dehydration. We're gonna send you back home. The last thing I wanted was to be sent back home. I just wanted to cry at this point. So I start chugging this water because if it is dehydration and the cramping is gonna stop, then I wanted it to stop. I drank both pitchers and I just laid back down, and again, just going through the pain. Then all of a sudden, I start to feel sick. And I lean over to my dad and I say, I'm feeling like I have to throw up. Actually, would you call somebody to bring me a bin or a bag? Before he could say okay and make it to the door to call a nurse, I had already went like this. All the water that I drank came out of me. It just came spilling out of me, and I just threw all of it up, every drop. So the nurse runs in. She's like, I'm gonna call the midwife to come and check to see if you're dilated. At this point, I was just discouraged. I felt like it's only an hour. They're probably gonna send me back home. The midwife comes in. I lay back so that she can check me. And then I hear her say, okay, my dear, you're dilated 6 centimeters. And I remember just being laid back and going like, really? Like, I'm really 6 centimeters? She's like, yeah, you're 6 centimeters and we're gonna be admitting you. And for a split second, I was like, wow, this is progressing. And after that second pass, I told my dad, call Mauricio, tell him to head back now. And my dad steps out, he makes the phone call, dad comes back. All of a sudden, I just start sobbing. I start sobbing because at that moment, I knew Mauricio was just not gonna make it on time. And I remember just telling my dad, like, he's not gonna make it, he's not gonna make it. And my dad was like just caressing my arm and my head and just saying, don't worry, he's gonna make it, he's gonna make it. And in my head, I just knew he's not gonna make it. If I moved 6 centimeters in an hour, I only need 4 centimeters more. This is progressing so fast. How in the world is he gonna make it? And I just start sobbing. Then a nurse comes in and she's trying to calm me down, and she's like, where's your husband? I'm like, he's a videographer, he's in Pennsylvania. Like, trying to also not make him look bad for not being there. So I start like telling her all these details about him, and she's like, oh, he's in Pennsylvania, that's only 2 hours away, he'll make it, you have time. She also starts to tell me, she's like, wow, 6 centimeters in an hour, that's rare. From that moment on, every nurse or doctor that came into my room going forward came in and were like, you're the one that dilated 6 centimeters in an hour? And I'm like, yep. So apparently that is really rare, and especially for a first-time mom. I don't know what it was, guys. I don't know what I did. It just happened, and I'm grateful it did, to be honest. They moved me to the next room, the room where I would be at for the duration of the night until the baby came. So while they're moving me, I turn to my dad and I go, Dad, I was able to withstand that pain for 6 centimeters. I think I'm gonna be able to do this without an epidural. And then he goes, yeah, Ma, you could do this, you're a beast, you're a beast. My dad, my #1 fan. So I start feeling myself and I'm like, I'm definitely not gonna take an epidural. I'm gonna do this. I got this. They hook me up. They strap me to the monitor. They put it in an IV. And now it's just playing the waiting game. And the pain starts to get, again, more intense. Now I'm at definitely a level 8, borderline hitting a level 9. I start to feel extreme, excruciating back pain, like shooting sharp back pain like you've never felt in your entire life. I was clenching to the bed sides and I was breathing like a bull, and I was starting to make noises, like not screaming, but I was starting to make loud noises. And I could see from my peripheral my dad was like sitting like this, but like trying not to make eye contact with me. He didn't know what to do and he didn't know how to comfort me. There really is nothing he could have done, but you could tell that he was feeling bad for me and he was feeling nervous. He's trying to talk to me to make me feel better. He's trying to distract me, but I can't even respond to him. All I can do is focus on my breathing. An hour goes by and the midwife comes back. She checks me and she's like, oh, you're still 6 centimeters. And I was like, wait, what? What happened to all this progress that just happened? I couldn't believe that I hadn't moved not even 1 centimeter within the hour. And the pain, this was no longer period cramps. This was like serious, excruciating, just torturous back pain and contracting. A nurse comes in to introduce herself and she tells me, I heard that you're not getting an epidural. She's like, girl, if you wait any longer, you're gonna miss your window for getting the epidural, because 1, you won't be able to stay still, and 2, you will be too far along to get it. I really suggest that you rethink your decision, because you have a long road ahead of you and it's only going to get worse. Everything she was saying was enough to convince me, and I told her, you know what? I think you're right. I'm gonna get the epidural. So she's like, good choice. It's not that bad. The worst part really is the fact that my dad had to leave the room. So he had to leave the room because the room has to be sterile. I'm like, who is gonna be my support? And thank God this nurse was amazing. She comes in front of me. She's like, do you want me to hold your hand? And I said, yes, please. Now remember, the contractions are serious at this point, and now I have to stay very, very still. So she holds both of my hands. She gets this close to me, almost forehead to forehead touching. And she said, when the contraction comes, just squeeze my hand and breathe deep in and out, but don't move. Whatever you do, don't move. What the doctor does is he gives you a needle in your back to numb you first. The area starts to get cool, and then by the time he puts the big needle in, you don't feel a thing. He gives me the epidural, leaves the room. He was not very friendly, that I will say. The only thing he told me, he was like, oh, you were dilated 6 centimeters within an hour. Wow, impressive. Literally, those were the only words he told me. The epidural started to kick in. Once it started kicking in, your girl was like, ooh, I can do this. This feels good. Oh my God, the epidural was everything. And also what I didn't know is that you can get several doses of the medicine. I did have to get topped off a couple of times because it was gonna take hours before I was gonna be ready to push. Now, at this point in the story, I don't know if anybody noticed, but my water didn't break this entire time. I also didn't mention that I was about, if I remember correctly, I was 36 weeks and 5 days pregnant. 37 weeks is considered full term, but they really encourage you to wait to give birth at 40 weeks. I already know I wasn't gonna make it to 40 weeks. The nurses actually said that it would be healthier for the baby to stay inside me as long as possible. They said even those 2 days would make a world of a difference. And because I was 2 days shy from 37 weeks, my baby was considered a preemie. Everybody was just encouraging me, just relax, just give it some time, just be patient, let the baby come when the baby wants to come. If the baby doesn't want to come now, it's okay. Meanwhile, I'm here, I'm like, no, it's not okay. I'm contracting, I'm uncomfortable, I'm ready to push this baby out. And they're like, I want your water to break by itself. So all this time, my water is not breaking by itself. Around 5 o'clock, I want to say, my best friend gets there. My best friend is a nurse, so she was there breathing with me. She was there holding my hand. She was there reading the monitors, telling me when the contractions were coming, helping me to really deal with this. So she was amazing. I mean, she was just right there in my face, telling me I could do this, telling me I was strong, telling me I was just made for this and that I'm gonna get through this. And really, just having those words being played in your head while you're going through this really intense experience, that is just priceless, because you're breathing hard. Mind you, even if you have the epidural, you can still feel contractions. The nurse came in and she started to tell everybody, okay, we're gonna have to kind of shut down conversation here because she needs to get some rest. They told me that I had to try to sleep because I would need all the energy to push later on in the night. So they turned down the lights. Everybody kind of like goes into the phone or starts to snooze off. So I rest my eyes. As I'm dozing off, I hear the door crack open. And at this point, nurses have been coming in and out hourly to check me, to check my vitals, to check my IV. I feel like, oh, it's probably just another nurse. I open my eye just a little to check, and guess who's trying to sneak into my room? My husband! He finally makes it to the hospital. I was so happy. I was relieved, and I felt like I could finally relax and kind of embrace the process, because now no matter what happens, I'm ready to go, because now my husband's here and he's not gonna miss a thing. By this point, I believe I was only 7 centimeters dilated. It took hours to get from 6 to 10. Looking back now, we know that what helped slow it down was the epidural, because since the epidural is a muscle relaxer, it slowed down the contractions, which slowed down the dilating. All this time, my water still doesn't break. I mean, I was laying down, I sat up, I moved side to side trying to get the water to break. And the nurse is like checking the monitor and she's like, your baby is so happy inside of you. He's taking the contractions so well. His heart rate is staying calm and steady. And what I learned was that sometimes the baby can go into distress when the mom kind of gets worked up or scared, screaming through the contractions. So this is why it's really important to stay calm, because it's important for your baby. It's like 9 o'clock, I'm only 8.5 centimeters dilated. By 10, 11 o'clock, unfortunately, my best friend, who was my only female support at the time, had to leave. She had to go to work the next day, which is completely understandable. So now I'm left with my dad and my husband. The boys fell asleep immediately. I was just still awake. I was trying so badly to sleep, but I just couldn't. I was so anxious to actually push. I wanted to see the baby so bad. I did not sleep the entire time I was in labor. Finally, I want to say about 12 o'clock hits. It's 12 o'clock. Now we're going into the next day. The midwife comes to check me. And when she comes in, I'm like, please tell me I'm at 10 centimeters. I have to be at 10 centimeters already. Break the water. I don't care. I want to start pushing, please. She says, okay, you're 10 centimeters, but you really need to be 10.1 or something like that. And I'm like, what? And she's like, okay, why don't we do this? Why don't you try to push the baby while the baby is still in the water sack? I said, really? That's an option? And she said, if you push the baby in the water sack, that's actually really good luck. And I'm like, yes, let's do this. I'm ready to push. I was already feeling the sensation of having to poop, which was the feeling you're supposed to have. And I was like, I'm ready. I can't hold on and not try to push anymore. She gets this big table of all these tools, and I can see like a whole bunch of sharp tools, so that kind of freaked me out, not gonna lie. She starts getting dressed, putting the gloves on. A whole bunch of other nurses that I had not seen all night start coming in. They start preparing everything. I'm not even caring that all these people are about to see my vajayjay. Like, I'm about to be butt naked, and it's the farthest thing from my mind, which is really weird for someone like me because I'm very private. So I was just like, let's do this. I don't care. I start to get into position, and funny enough, when my best friend was there, I told her, watch, I'm gonna push this baby out in like 10 pushes. No, that's not how it happened. I actually ended up pushing for at least an hour. It is way harder than you think it is. I have my husband on my left side and my dad on my right side. And before we start, I tell my husband, do not look.
I'm just gonna look at your face, babe. I'm gonna look down there. I don't want to be scarred.
You can look this way. I don't want you to be like, oh, let me see if the head is out.
Do not look at my area. I don't want you to see me this way. Once we start pushing, it's a little bit difficult because since I had the epidural, I was still feeling the contractions, but just not as much, so it was hard for me to know when to push. I start pushing. At this point, I forgot to mention that when I started pushing, my water finally broke, and it broke all over the nurse's scrubs. And finally, after 30 minutes, I'm exhausted. Remember, I hadn't slept, I didn't eat, so I had no energy. People are getting annoyed around me because like I'm not pushing right. I'm like, oh god, I gotta get this together. So I'm literally just trying to follow instructions. They want you to try to push for at least 10 seconds. So while you're pushing, everybody in the room is like 1, 2, 3, and then you try to make it to 10, and I couldn't even make it past 7. I couldn't do 7 seconds of pushing. So everybody was like, take a break, it's okay. But I didn't want to take long breaks because I was already feeling the pressure of his head. Finally, the head starts to crown. Since the head was crowning, between pushing and then taking a break, the head is going in and out, literally sticking out of you and going back in until you push it out completely. When I tell you the burning sensation of the stretch, ladies, it is real. I was holding my dad's hand and my husband's hand, and they were both holding each one leg. And while I was pushing, Mauricio is like, I can see the head, I can see the head. And I'm like, don't look, they told you not to look. And the nurses start laughing and they're like, Marisol, you're almost there, we can see the head. I'm pushing and he's telling me, Ma, keep pushing, don't stop. It's beautiful, I can see the baby's head. I end up pushing really hard and finally I get the head out. And I'm telling you guys, that was the hardest part. Once I pushed out the head, I did one more push and the whole body came out. And that's it. Voila, the baby was here. And as soon as the baby came out, it was kind of like silent, and I freaked out and I'm like, what's wrong? The baby's not crying. And once the baby cried, there was a huge sigh of relief, and they put the baby on me immediately, dirty, wet, goo and all. And I thought that when they would put the baby in my chest, I would start like bawling, crying, but I just cried a little bit. I was just so happy to see him and to hold him, and I was exhausted, honestly. I was so tired, so I was just trying to take everything in. So the baby was on top of me, the umbilical cord was still connected. So then I hear the nurse, you have to push the placenta out now. And I'm like, with the baby on top of me, and she said, wait for my cue. And she goes, 1, 2, 3, push. I pushed a little bit and it came right out. It was still on top of me and they start to stitch me up right there and then. There are people coming in and out. There are tons of people everywhere, and the baby's there. My husband is crying, my dad is crying. We couldn't believe that the baby was finally here. Finally, baby Leo was in our arms and we could see him and kiss him and talk to him. Now I'm left alone in the hospital. Everybody clears the room. The nurse that was with me the whole night starts to clean me up. When I tried to get up to get into the wheelchair, my legs were so wobbly. And the first attempt to get up, after now realizing I just got stitched up, because now the adrenaline and all that joy of the baby being here has subsided, and reality is hitting that my body has just given birth to a human being, and my body has just expanded. I start feeling everything. It starts to hit me like a ton of bricks. So she puts me in the wheelchair. She wheels me to the bathroom, which is literally like 10 steps away. And that's when the hard post-recovery painful journey starts. Ladies, at this point, you really don't care who sees you or helping you or anything. So I'm sitting in the toilet and she's like, try to pee. This is my first lesson on the healing process, because she's like, this is how you clean yourself. And she shows me how to use the, I don't know the exact name for the bottle, but basically it's a squirt bottle that you have to use. You wet yourself with little water and soap and you pat to dry. You do not wipe. There's no rubbing because you have stitches and you are bleeding like you wouldn't believe. So she does that. It's painful. It's uncomfortable. Literally somebody is wiping my butt, a stranger, but she was so sweet. At this point, it's like 3 in the morning. She wheels me to now the next room where I would be recovering, and she brings me juice and crackers. I literally scarf it down. Finally, I'm like, now I can sleep. And as soon as I shut my eyes, the door opens, they roll the baby in, and the nurse is like, you have to breastfeed. And I'm like, what? By the time I was breastfeeding, done swaddling, burping, and put him down, now it was 5 in the morning. I was finally able to sleep. Literally, that was the beginning of the end of sleep for me. And I haven't slept longer than 3 hours since. But now baby Leo's here, and that is my labor and delivery story. I know this video was probably super long. If you lasted this long to the end, thank you so much for watching. Please let me know if you liked this video. If you did like it, please give it a thumbs up, and please show me some love by subscribing, and I'll see you again in my next video. Bye.